got a hit on Hassan.
We can't take him in Iran.
He's not in Iran. Who do we send?
All right, lads, well, we're in position.
Bravo team offloads here. Alpha team stays on board to land downrange. This is capture or kill.
Ya son más de 10 años metiéndole y todavía sueno como nuevo. Balvin no tiene relevo, me sobra el dinero, el respeto y los huevos. Yo, cada movimiento que hago es luego otro nivel lo elevo. Tú sonaste, me pagaste y no lleva ni la mitad.
We're shifting! Watch the containers!
How the hell did Iran get their hands on this?
It's either Russia or us.
Anywhere I roam.
We need an army.
I can get us an army.
Free to speak my mind anywhere. And I'll redefine anywhere.
Mexican Special Forces, 141, they are your brothers now.
Where I lay my head is home there.
Weapons hard, vaqueros. Pre-order now and get early access to the open beta.
Nothing hurts my mom. That she showed anyway. She'd always say, you do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But she thought that meant she had to do it on her own. We were trained to help others. But there's strength in finding help for yourself, too. We're in this together. Even the toughest of us might not know where to go to get a little support.
Encourage women who have served to learn more about the VA care and benefits they've earned. The VA Women Veterans Call Center connects veterans with personalized information on VA services that can make a difference. Call 1-855-VA-WOMEN or visit www.womenshealth.va.gov.
All right, you can't see me, but you can hear me. I'm Travis with Oscar Mike Radio. Oscar Mike Radio is part of the Hubuzoo Network. You can find out more on hubuzoo.com. This is number 299. And you can't see me, but I'm here. I'm on the corner of 139 and Old Randolph in Abington, Massachusetts by the Richard Fitts Sr. Memorial. And on your left and on the right are two men who are involved in a story I've been covering for quite some time. Richard Fitts Jr. on your left, Austin Fitts. On your right, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Oh, please don't call me sir. Rich, you know me too long. So I am just honored to have you both down here on a weeknight. The sun's not even down yet, but we're talking here. This story of 21 years of Folded Flag is still being told.
Yes, sir.
So for those who don't know the story, just give me a Cliff Notes version of what your story is, and then we'll go into what Austin thinks about all this.
21 Years a Folded Flag is basically centered around the story of my father and his service, and the fact that he was technically classified as missing in action, and this event that caused that happened in 1968 when I was 2 years old. However, it took many, many years, decades, to find out what really happened. And the reason that is because my father was in a unit, operating in a unit that was highly classified and sworn to secrecy for over 20 years. So when the event that happened that caused his status as missing, they really could not be forthcoming with the truth. So 21 Years of Folded Flag was a film that I put together trying to gather the information and tell the story. And that's where we're at.
Well, we're at 2022. It's June right now. We're missing Mistress Carrie for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're here right now, and you know, this is a generational story that started off with your father in serving as a Green Beret in Vietnam. You've told this story, but you know, one person I've seen throughout all this is your son, Austin Fitts.
Absolutely.
And you know, one of the things we talked about before is with your story is sometimes we don't hear from the children a whole lot. And so you approached Austin about this, and you know, kind of Austin, you know, you've seen your dad work to tell his story.
Absolutely.
You've never met your grandfather before.
No, sir. No, sir.
Please don't call me sir. I'm a Lance Corporal. I work for a living. I love you. What's that been like? Take us back to when your father started doing this.
Started the journey of 21 years.
Yes.
I've been very much so a sidelines figure here. This hasn't been something I've been super hands-on involved with as far as any of the production of the movie. I had a couple of things. I did some cameos, I guess you could say, doing some filming in Vermont up there. That was good. And I've seen his journey from the start to finish, as far as when it was just an idea in his head to, you know, submitting the movie to film festivals and such. Now he's working very closely with you and how you've been helping him. And my opinion on it all, it's been one of the most impressive undertakings that I've ever seen anybody do. He always told me growing up when I was a kid how his father was in SOG, he was a Green Beret, he was this, he was that, almost godlike to me, because I would never meet this man. I never knew. And there was a bunch of fractured stories through the years that you know, oh, he was put in for the Silver Star, and here's the official notice, and oh, here's the story of how he got his Bronze Star and his Purple Heart, and this. Nothing was ever put together in its entirety, and you know, it was kind of hard for my father to tell his story as well in all this. And what I think that is so impressive about this movie and so astounding is that in many ways he was able to draw attention to his father and what he had done, but also his own story, and shed light on others who might be in a similar boat. And seeing that happen from the sidelines has just been something to behold, to be honest with you. It's hard to explain. In fact, I was trying to think about what I was going to say to that question, and there's where do I start?
Well, we're starting right here tonight at this memorial in Abington. Thousands of people, you're going to hear it probably in the video, are driving past us right now. For both of you, take a crack at this. What do you want somebody to think when they see this memorial as they're driving by?
Well, that's very complicated and simple at the same time. Like you said, thousands see it. this is a very high traffic area. So what I would like is somebody, for one, to ask the question. They see what's going on here and they ask the question, what is the story? They go by and see. I mean, there's probably tons of people that live in the area that get numb to it and drive by it. But the first thing, like I said, was ask that story. What is that about? That's one thing that I get from this memorial, and others should as well. You have to keep those names alive. You know, getting back to your question about, you know, what my son thought about this movie. I mean, this whole idea is not just me, not just my father. It's for him. It's for future. It's for people to understand that the story has to be told. Something that was so classified that couldn't even be told to the family. Now that we can, then it should be open, and those discussions and those stories should be alive. He should be able to have that knowledge and that lineage and know what it's about, so he can take it and pass it down. You know, he never met his grandfather, but technically neither did I. So it's a journey and a undertaking that is for the future. And the same with this Memorial Corner. It's the same idea. People had the thought to put this corner together, as they have in many other instances, that here it is, and hey, pay attention to the story. There's a whole story here, there's lives here, there's families here, and there's also legacy, and there's also sacrifice here, and there's freedom here, and that's what it's all about.
What goes through your mind as you came here tonight at this memorial, Austin?
What goes through my mind in relation to your last question is, I think he hit the nail on the head, absolutely. One thing that I want to elaborate a little bit more on that I've been thinking since you asked that was, there's a lot of locals in this area who do know the story, and I think that this memorial serves as a great reminder for them to one day pass that story on, to bring it up in conversation, to say, oh, well, there was this gentleman who was from this town. He was in SOG, he was a Green Beret, and he was missing in action for 21 years. And that, I think, highlights an issue with a lot of things. We have so many soldiers, so many Marines, so many seamen, so many airmen who go missing in action and are never found and aren't reported on or told their whereabouts until X amount of years later. And I think that's something that not only needs to be addressed, but it leaves families at a loss. And this memorial is a reminder that A, not all hope is lost for those families, but B, these people, they are found, you know, and there's a story to be told for everybody. And I think my grandfather is just one of those many, many stories, and I think this memorial symbolizes that in a great way. I really do, and I'm happy this memorial is here for that reason.
Absolutely, and you mentioned a lot of locals know the story, and when I talk to some of the locals, like John Beadle Jr., he was in Vietnam. He tells a lot of the same stories. As these stories are being told, though, there's a new bunch of people, a new group of people being exposed to the story because of the film and your grandfather's and father's legacy. What's it like telling that story to somebody new for the first time?
For me, it's a sense of pride, which I think, goes hand in hand with even the town about the story, and quite frankly, goes hand to hand with all the crowds that I've met, the people I've, hung out with, the gentlemen I've interviewed. There is a huge amount of honor and pride that goes along with this. And, to kind of get off the subject, in a way, I don't know how to answer it, because there's so many answers to that. There's so many. Do you want to take some of that?
Yeah, take a crack.
I feel like it depends on who you tell the story to the first time. I have quite a few friends who are interested in it. You do some of the work with the parades and the USV in the area. Yeah, we have that conversation. A lot of those friends have military families, so it's easier and more palatable to introduce that story. But a lot of times when you initially start the story, hey, something you might not know about is that certain, what do you call them, operators or servicemen, in certain areas many years ago were doing things that weren't declassified. So here's why we only found out, about his whereabouts and his death 21 years later. And that's a whole can of worms that you have to go down a rabbit hole with. So, it's...
And that's exactly why it was difficult to answer, because you can tell a general story about this.
Yeah.
And you don't want to belittle it. It's great that people know about it. When you start to get into the details on how unique and rare this story is, Travis, you can attest to that. Being in the military, that these situations, this particular unit that my father was in was so rare. There was no way they were doing this stuff today. I mean, this is just, it was all volunteer, etc., but it was just so, it's unheard of. And as crazy as it sounds, this was stuff that it would make a Rambo movie look like Bambi.
Because it was all real.
It was all real. And you would never, ever expect it. So you don't want to be a person that brags, but there's a certain amount of pride. And you kind of, in a way, you really want to make aware, not just because I'm his son, this is his grandson. It's not just because of that. It's about what the level of what they were willing to do for our freedom is unheard of. Yes, you have a few here and there, but this was, completely off the charts in a way. And like you said, all true.
All true. This wasn't some Hollywood writer somewhere. I mean, I'm looking over the paperwork that you have on your father and some of the things that you've shown me, and Platoon, Apocalypse Now doesn't come close to that. Austin, you're growing up, and you may get married. You may make your dad a grandfather one day.
See about that.
What may happen? It may not happen. I mean, I got to ask this. Have you ever thought about, telling your son about your, grandfather's story or your daughter?
To be honest with you, that thought crosses my mind probably once a week. If I ever did have kids, how would I? Because the way that he told me the story, like I said initially here in the opening, was that my grandfather was almost deified in my head, because it was legendary status of this top secret warrior, with a group of other guys just like him who would go out and do these incredible things. And then just the gravity of the story behind that, and, after his death. So in the event that I did have children, thinking, how would I replicate that gravity, when it's another generation removed from this guy, from this godlike figure, if you understand. So there is such an importance to that. So how would I tell them? I would definitely point them in the direction of the documentary first. Watch this. If you have questions, we'll speak later. But it's such a tough thing. That's a tough one to answer right off the.
Well, so here's quickly. Maybe another tough one, but one I've definitely asked your father a couple times. For me, when I heard your grandfather's voice for the first time, and your father and Rudy had done all this work with the sound to get his voice back,
right?
It chilled me to the bone. What was your reaction when you first heard your grandfather's voice in that way?
It brought the godlike figure to a human perspective. It became real. It became real. Exactly. This was the guy. This was my grandfather. This is what he sounded like. And to me, in my head, I just started playing images of, like, this is the voice that he was going around every day, talking to people, doing the things that he did before and during the military, and that this is my grandfather. And like you said, it was chilling. It was jaw-dropping. It was definitely a trip, something that I didn't expect that to be in the documentary. Neither did you. That was kind of a...
For me, it all depended on, and maybe it's because of my musical background or my ears, but it all depended on how good it came across, how well we were able to repair the sound and get it back to what it was. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of instincts about what I should do to this sound and the voice. In particular, some tech talk. I wanted to drop it a pitch because back in the day, the reel-to-reel decks sometimes would play at a higher speed or an inconsistent speed. So if anybody knows anything about that, if the speed is faster, the pitch rises, and vice versa. And then you can, if it's intermittent, you get this weird warbly sound. So for me, I was willing to deal with some of that just to get the emotion and the realness out of it. However, I was more than blown away with the end result.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that helped me work on that, and Rudy, that was a 3 to 4 stage repair. That's how many different people I had involved. And I would take it to one, got it to a certain point, and at the end it was just impeccable how well they did it. And really kudos for all those people that worked on it. There was 2 people in particular, was Joe Clapp at Ultrasound Studios, and then the second was Sean McLaughlin at 37. And they're both of them, what they did just brought it to such a different level, and I was just blown away.
I don't know if you're ever going to release the original, or if you already have, but...
no, I didn't release it, but it's still there.
That would be interesting because...
Just a comparison.
It was almost inaudible.
Yeah.
When I very first heard it, before any of the touch-ups, before any of the remaster, it was almost inaudible. But still, it was crazy to hear, but, what they did, shouting out who did the remaster, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Well, maybe that's a little piece that we can do on the side. Mm-hmm. Maybe a YouTube thing for my channel or whatever, or yours. Yeah. Just a comparison and talking about what we did for the film. That'd be great.
Well, I mentioned it because, for so long when we first met, that was a real fulcrum of the whole project you were trying to get right. And then, it wasn't audible. You said, Travis, I can't even let you listen to this. You can't hear anything.
Right.
And then I think it was at the Bridgewater Public Library, we had that showing that you first had it, and it absolutely just stopped me cold.
Yeah, stopped everybody cold.
Yeah.
A little side note, as a matter of fact, my mother had heard the original, and maybe she remembered it, but I happened to, somebody had converted it to a CD. It was obviously a cassette tape, and so that version from the cassette tape was put onto a CD. There was no polishing, it was just converted. So my mother obviously had heard it, and I said, we got this converted to a CD one night, you listen to this, and her reaction was like, oh yeah, okay, I think I remember that, I brought her back a few months later after it was all complete and let her hear it, and she was in tears. So what that told me was that I got it right.
Yeah.
As difficult as it is, and as emotional as it is, my instincts for what I wanted to do with it and where it was taken was something that gave me some confirmation.
Awesome.
And like you said, it does stop you in your tracks. And I thought there was a huge, poignant part of our story that had to be there. It was the only thing we had left of him. That was it. A voice that I knew was him.
So, Austin, you've heard your grandfather's voice, you've seen his story. Let's change this up a little bit. Your father's quite the talented musician.
That he is.
What goes through your mind when your dad is shredding on guitar better than most kids half his age?
Oh man, well, I'd hope he's shredding better than people half his age.
See how he gets?
Mercy.
Old guy.
I don't know. Curb your ego? No. No, it's honestly impressive. Like, for growing up, even I remember as a toddler going to some of it. He was playing out at a couple of restaurants and bars and whatnot. He'd be, oh, you should bring the kid, and I'd go out, and even back then I was impressed. Growing up, I was impressed. Now he's only gotten better over the years, and it's just he has a amount of talent that is indescribable for most people now. I mean, you got people on YouTube getting so many views, and they don't have as much talent in their entire body as you do in your pinky finger. So
it's a generational gap.
Come on, get on it, Dad.
It is, I know, right? It's definitely a generational gap. It's I got to be honest with you. I'll tell you flat out. I've been off and on doing this, and the off is what kills you. Life is life. You're an adult. You get mortgage, job, kid, this and that. You can't spend your weeks and weekends playing and rehearsing and going out and playing gigs and not spend time or be there as a father as much or just be an adult. There are things you got to do, and for me that was first and foremost important because of my situation. Life takes these turns, and there were times where I'd throw myself back into it, and it was great, and then it turns again, and you got to just roll with the punches. Right. Sometimes you have to put stuff aside. But as you mentioned, JR5 Studios was a brainchild that I've had for a while that I just figured I'd try to chip away at. To be honest with you, I looked at it like, well, I was able to put a soundtrack together for my film, okay? And if I was to be able to do that, what is stopping me from moving further?
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. I slowly upgraded. I sold a whole mess of stuff for quite a long time. Every little piece of that stuff that I sold would go to the materials just to put walls up on the studio, and it's still not done, but it's at the point now where I can actually get some decent recordings out of it. And, and I'm still learning, but it allows me to learn, and it allows me to learn at a better level.
Awesome.
And it's probably made me, as far as I am the quintessential, guitarist. That's my main thing, but it really, since I've delved into the soundtrack thing, has pushed me into a lot of different areas. So I've delved more into drums, bass, keyboards. I'm not trained at any of this stuff, but I put my face into it and just did it. And there are times where technically it'll take away some of your time on your guitar, your instrument. It's not like riding a bike, folks. And these kids nowadays are just unbelievable in what they can do technically. But there's got to be something said for mileage and experience. So it broadened a lot of my horizons, and I think I'm all around better as a musician and composer now.
Awesome. Awesome. Speaking of JR5 Studios, we're going to head over to JR5 Studios because this is the part I'm talking about. The story isn't ending yet. You have this gentleman, this Air Force veteran, Art O'Callahan, who's coming and doing a song. We're going to learn all about that. I'll close with this. What's the feeling now in your family and when you go out in the community about the story of Richard Fitts Sr.?
In so many ways, including what's coming up with Art and the studio, it's just another full circle situation. We are finally, there's so much coming to light, even after my film. There's always more to be told. There's more to learn. And I think what at first was an idea to say, here's the film and here's the story, and finally, it's it's always something else. It's always going to continue. There's plenty more. And I think for now, I think it should be more. I think we're going to continue more. And tell some more stories, connect some more people. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how there's that divine intervention.
Awesome, awesome. Austin?
I think a really big part about 21 years of Folded Flag was allowing some people who might be in the same position as him to show that there's others who didn't know or who might not still know. And I think as part of the legacy and what's going on, I think this can create a community. I really do. And I think this is both a good thing for us.
Absolutely.
But it's also a good thing for the community at large of a lot of people of not just special operations missing in action, but just missing in action in general. And for that, I think might be the thing that I'm most proud of you about is garnering the attention to that, because before this, I don't know really who would have even paid that any thought, and now you have literally around you and your movie a community that I've watched grow, and I think that's incredibly impressive. And you want to talk about legacy for the family and what that is, if that's anything, if anything comes out of that and that's it, that's incredible on so many different levels.
Well, what it all comes down to is there's a connection now. I'm filling a gap that, as you know, Vietnam veterans, there was a bit of a gap for a while, all right? And so people like yourself and Oscar Mike Radio, and you mentioned Mr. Carey and all these people, all these film festivals that I've gone to and met, it's creating awareness. And people such as yourself and anyone that I've talked to, their willingness to just listen and then, wow, you know what I mean? They go, wow, really? That has opened up connections with people. And you don't want to bring back bad memories, but you don't want to forget. And sometimes there's a little gap in generation. People will just move on with their lives, and they're, rightfully so, focused on Iraq and Afghanistan, etc. But there's a gap, and that gap should be included with everybody. And I think this is a strong part of that. Connecting all these people and all these pieces is going to let this continue, and people are going to still give it its just deserves.
Absolutely. I want to see that, and it's been a real privilege and honor being part of the story, to see the story come together. I'm not part of the story, but this, my part in seeing it come together and seeing the good that it has. And, look, we're getting ready to go off the rails to JR5 Studios. Do not go anywhere. But before we do, I just want to say thank you to, Richard again for coming on Oscar Mike Radio and telling this segment of the story, and Austin for sharing so warmly and authentically. Thank you very much.
Travis, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And you're always a part of the story.
Appreciate it.
Day one.
So don't go anywhere. We're going to transition and go to JR5 Studios. We are Mission in Flight. I'm pleased to introduce on your right, Richard Fitts Jr., Gold Star son of Abington, recording artist, because this is a very special moment as we are in JR5 Studios, his studios he built to create this kind of content. And we are joined by Art O'Callahan, Air Force veteran, and talking about the project they have done together. Gentlemen, welcome to Oscar Mike Radio.
Thank you very much, Travis. Appreciate that.
Art, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm going to let you guys kind of take this and run with it, but I understand that there's a story behind why we're here and what you're doing now. So kind of take me back, and we'll start with Art first. You're in the Dunkin' Donuts. Of course, we start with Dunkin' Donuts. What happens as you're in the Dunkin' Donuts a while ago reading the Boston Herald?
I was reading about Rich's father, Richard Fitts, and I knew he was from Abington, and he was a hometown boy, and I knew he was missing. for a lot of years, and he'd come back. He was missing for 21 years. And I read the story in the Herald and how they found him, and it just moved me. It gave me chills, and I knew I had this melody in my head. So I went home and I turned on my recorder and I started playing this melody, and all of a sudden these words came out, and it was just beautiful. I don't know what the word would be.
Like a song?
Tribute to M.I.A.s. You know, I don't think we should ever forget about M.I.A.s with any war, but the Vietnam War especially, because that's the era that I was in.
So what happened next after you go home and you read this? What happened during that time?
I just started playing this melody, and the words to the song that I've just written came out. Back when they first discovered Richard Fitts.
So how did you two get connected?
Well, if I recall correctly, Art, didn't you reach out to me social media?
I put it on Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
And I put the song on Facebook.
And we had never known each other.
No.
Nope. And it wasn't until really recently that I kind of realized that Art knew of at least my father.
Yes, I did.
And was it your older brother or sister that may have went to school with my mother?
Yes, my sister.
Yeah. No, none of this I ever knew. I didn't know until after we hooked up, really. I didn't really put two and two together.
Yeah.
But there's a certain generational crowd within my parents' age and within the local area that you were a part of. So it's got a lineage connection and not to mention a generational connection. But this, again, this really wasn't, you reached out to me and you actually, if I recall, it was maybe on your phone, you told me about the song.
The song, yeah.
And I was literally in the process of putting together this
studio.
For those of you who don't know, the film that I did the soundtrack in this same basement before any of this was built. I was really guerrilla tactics, I didn't have even power down here. I drilled through holes through my floor and dropped extension cords down just so I could have something to work with. And I bought myself a DAW, a recording system, digital audio workstation, and just put my face into it and started learning. So there was nothing here.
Right.
But when you approached me, I was probably about halfway through. I mean, there's still work to be done, but I mean, I can at least use it now and put out a decent product. But I was probably about halfway through that. And I had suggested that, that would be really cool if maybe when this is done, I can have Art come here. And not to belittle the project or the song, but I personally thought this might be great practice, a good opportunity for this gentleman to get his song recorded, and a great opportunity for me to say, hey, here's a project that will allow me to take some time with it and even learn as I go. I mean, I don't know everything perfectly yet either, but I thought, what a great opportunity. Go ahead.
So, Art, what happens when you come and meet Richard for the first time?
When I came to meet him?
Yes.
Well, we just we played for him what I had, and and then we went from there. I mean.
And who's the other gentleman we have?
Mike Visconti.
Yeah. And Mike has got he's got quite the resume behind him.
Yes, he does. Yeah,
he's worked with a lot of top.
Without him, the song wouldn't be what it is right now.
Mm-hmm. And he's kind of
guided me along.
Kind of guided you and expanded some of your.
Made some changes, and it just come out beautiful.
Mm-hmm. So the first time we got together, I think even before that, the whole idea and this process really started sparking some ideas and really started expanding in my mind about what it could be. I mean, at first it was just like, okay, let's hang out and try to record a song. But then I slowly realized the meaning behind this. And the song itself is, you know, there's an emotion, there's a clear cut emotion in a slice of time.
Right. It talks about the draft. You know, I'm an individual dealing with the draft, and then, you know, going to war and becoming, you know, non-existent.
Now, Art, were you drafted?
No.
You chose to serve voluntarily.
I chose to serve. I was married. I had a child on the way, and I didn't have a job, so I decided to join the Air Force. My brother was in the Air Force, and that's what I went in. I followed my brother. So.
But take me back to Dunkin' Donuts. What kind of day was it? Was it just a bright sunny day? Was it?
It was actually it was kind of an overcast day. It was kind of mildewy out and kind of downtrodden, like depressing, from what I can remember. And I just remember reading the paper, and I say, you know, how much it affected me. It really affected me. Like, you know, I can't remember who wrote the story, but it was in the Boston Herald.
Probably not unlike, you know, some of these old clippings that I still have, you know, from the paper. And I know I even have his article, the one he's talking about. I have so many of them that that people were kind enough to put together. But this is, again, it really attributes how much emotion there was around this story. When my father's remains came back, it was such a huge story.
Yeah.
Not only around here, but, you know, the people around here don't see the rest of
That's right.
the world and you know,
That's
what's
right.
going on. But it really struck, it re-sparked, I think, a lot of emotion with that generation.
We were all brothers. We were all brothers in the same war.
It was
brothers and sisters.
It was a key element, and it's, I think, my father's name, for whatever reason, was attached to a lot of that, and I guess in some ways a good way, because it re-sparked all those emotions and feelings. And there's a lot of people that told me that when his remains came back, it was like, now we finally can come out. There's one guy that said, you know, he wore his medals for the first time since he got back, because of the way they were treated. And as soon as my father's remains came back, he put his medals back on.
Wow.
And went out. So this is what I'm talking about.
Art, if you could tell me, what was it like back then? Because, you know, I was, you know, not alive during that time, and I've heard stories, but it's so much more impactful when the veteran tells me how the country was during that time when they got out.
Well, it was a lot of unrest. It was a lot of unrest on the I don't know how to put it, different classes of people and different races of people. It was always, you know, and then with the Vietnam War, and then you had all the protesters against the war, and you know, it didn't make the soldiers feel any good that they were out there, you know, fighting for freedoms and that we enjoy today. It just stuck in our throat, you know, and it's stuck. It's a stigma that we're attached to forever, and we must never forget about missing in action, the people that are missing. That's my goal.
We must never forget.
Forget about the people that are missing, you know, the soldiers that have gone, that haven't been found. There's a lot of them.
You mentioned stigma. Do you feel there's still a stigma today, or is it still lingering in your mind?
It's lingering, but I don't think it's as bad as it was back then, no. I do believe that there's a lot of respect now today as opposed to what it was back then. A lot of people come around to feel for the Vietnam soldier.
So is this song, it seems to me it's more than just about a song. This is, you're trying to heal.
It's a feeling.
Is it a feeling?
Yeah. It's a deep feeling about that era.
Because as you will hear, ladies and gentlemen, when the song comes out, I think you do a very good job of getting that feeling. So, Rich, when you hear the song that Art has done, what's going through your mind?
It's a picture. Music to me has always been very an inner visual thing. I always can create a picture of a moment in time and a feeling. And it's always, I try my best to convey the visual in the notes to what's going on. So I relate to a lot of music that way. But where this is so personal, what goes through my mind is like, there's definitely an amount of pride, good, bad, or indifferent. My father's story inspired this type of emotion.
Yep.
And I think there's a certain amount of closure, if I might, in this emotion. There's a certain amount of victory in this emotion in his song. He's recalling a time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's also a green light now to be able to express that. And, there's so many different facets here that it goes in so many different directions and feel. But the point is, it all was sparked from my father. And now we have the ultimate circle.
Yep.
It's come full circle now, because in 1989, you're sitting in Dunkin' Donuts reading this article. Who would ever thought that this long after that, that you would be sitting in his only son's recording studio?
No, I know. And
getting this song to fruition and completing it.
Yeah, wow.
That to me is just another one of those many things that I've talked about, that the powers to be have a way of guiding us.
That's right.
And it, again, you can say you can't make it up, but you can't. You just, that's a cliche saying. You can't make this stuff up, but it happens.
Spiritually, when I went home to record this song, I don't know where the words came from. I think something came through me, and it just came out, and it gave me goosebumps after it made me.
I've experienced that many times.
You know what I'm saying?
And the divine intervention of sorts has a way of, for me, in this whole process with the film and everything else, has had a way of, putting the goosebumps out and just.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps now just sitting here talking about it.
There's just something about it that, you can't deny.
Art, if you would, when did music enter your life?
When did music enter my life?
Yes. When did you start?
When I was a kid. But I never really got into it the way Rich has. I mean, I never had lessons or anything. I just, one time when I was in the military, a friend of mine was a guitar player, and he was very good. He bought my first guitar, and I just started picking at it, and I've never had a lesson or anything. And, I'm not that good, but I'm all right.
You sound pretty good to me when I heard you play. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. But through the years, have you maintained this love of music, and how does it feel to take your love and make this?
I've always been into music from far as back as I can remember. I mean, I got into music during the Buddy Holly days. You know what I mean? Way back in the 50s. And the day he died, I remember the day he died, my parents were going to visit my grandfather who lived in Malden, and I was in the back seat and heard it over the radio that he had just passed away in a plane crash, And that's when I first heard about, because he was my idol. Buddy Holly.
That was the same one with Richie Valens.
Richie Valens
the Big
and
Bopper.
the Big Bopper, yeah.
Right, they were all on the same.
And you
plane,
know who
right?
else was supposed to be on it? It was Waylon Jennings was supposed to be on that plane, and he didn't go.
Wow. So you're creating this song, which is, I don't want to use that term because it's part memory,
Right.
part in the present moment to make people feel something. You're trying to communicate a feeling, and part of it's for the future so people don't forget. I guess my question is, as we kind of wind this down, is where is it now in incubation? How far along are you all with this project?
Well,
you can take that. You can interpret that how you'd like. What do you think?
there's a few things I have to iron out and get into the production of the song to get more into it, the feeling of that era. But I think it's coming along great.
Awesome.
It's coming along great. I don't think it's going to be long at all before we're done with it.
And Rich, coming back to you, I mean, you kind of hit on it a little bit, but tell us, you're talking to a Vietnam era veteran, who was just a couple of miles away in Rockland, and now we're back in Abington doing this. We've talked several times about how the film impacted you. You're giving a little bit of yourself too, and all that, that went into it, the pain, the trauma, the not knowing, into this song. Where are you at when you work on something like this?
I think a lot of it, I have I don't think I consciously knew this until I actually finished the film, but I have a unique ability of turning the switch on and off unconsciously, which I didn't realize until, like I said, I stopped the film. I think I probably do that a little bit with this, so I can focus on the big picture. I think two sides of it. I think if I thought too hard about it, I'd have a hard time moving forward with the music because it would get to me emotionally. But some of that you have to let out. So it'll, you need to bring that out. But on the other side of this is we're come full circle. It's very comfortable. I mean, the first time Art came here, I just had no apprehension. It was very comfortable. It was like old home week in a way. It was, he's so local that it's almost like an unknown part of the family, part of the friends, part of the group. You know what I mean? It just was very comfortable. And regardless of generational age difference or backgrounds or whatever, for me, I enjoyed it right away because there was no stigma. There was no apprehension as far as, I have to prove something here. We didn't set out to, be like that. This was organically was this simple, thought-filled, emotional piece. Yeah. It's not a complicated song, but you don't have to have complication when you're trying to tell a story.
Okay.
And that's what it's all about. It's a very well told story. Anybody can connect to this right away, and that's where we're at. That's what made this easy for me.
You made it easy for me. It was so easy to get along with.
Right.
So it was great.
So there's no, like I said, this is like having a buddy over.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm 71 years old.
Get out.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I know. I said the same thing. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I hope I look half that good at 71.
Oh, thanks, but you don't want my body.
It's not the years; it's the miles, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to have Art get out his guitar, and we're kind of going to end the talking portion of this. And I'm not going to spoil it for them because this is their moment, but you're going to see Art and Rich working together. And I'll do some voiceover over this clip, but I kind of want you to keep this in the back of your mind that even though the Vietnam War has been over for a very long time, there's still 81,000 people missing throughout all conflicts. There's several people still missing in Vietnam right now and in Laos. And the fact of the matter was, it took 21 years for Richard Fitts Jr. and his family to get closure on his father's sacrifice. So I'm not going to, spoil any of their work in this show, but I'm going to show you some video clips, and we'll be dropping reminders to check out the song when it drops. And I want to thank you both for talking with me right now. What are you all hoping to accomplish this afternoon?
Well, I'm going to look at this session as a reminder session.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to walk away from things and like a warm up again, just kind of remind yourself. It's very similar to doing an exercise, going to the gym. You just kind of have to warm up your muscles again. I just want to kind of revisit it and just do some warm up. If we do some scratch tracks, we do. If we don't, we don't. Right. I think there's a couple little experiment things that I might want to noodle around with, but today's not a pressure thing. There's other guitar parts that'll be coming in later that we'll worry about. So I honestly think it's just about sitting down, putting the mics in front of us, and just walking through the deal. So the more you set up and the more you get used to the surroundings, the more comfortable you get, and the more that comfort comes across in the recording. So it's just sitting down again and goofing around. That's all.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Awesome. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, this is, if you're listening, watching, this is number 298 as we count down to 300. I'm with Art O'Callahan, Air Force veteran during the Vietnam era, and Richard Fitts Jr., Gold Star son. And I want to tell you, gentlemen, I just am honored to be here right now, to be able to talk with you. And again, we're going to break to some clips of them working together, but this will close. Enjoy, and keep checking back here for when the song actually is produced. It's going to be very exciting. So, Jim, I want to say thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oscar Mike Radio, Travis, love you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me and watching Oscar Mike Radio. Now go to OscarMikeRadio.com and click Shop to check out all the cool merchandise from Authentically American. All proceeds go to veteran service organizations. We are Mission in Flight.